I think it's very possible of what I said before happens, and he's here for one more year, and that's it. So I think most people are thinking of it as, okay, they're either going to reboot it and Nick Sirianni and company's going to save him, or the Eagles are going to trade him. I think it's in between. I think he stays for 1 year and he's gone.
You're listening to the JAKIB Media Sports Network in partnership with AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media channel on YouTube for access to all daily sports content.
All right, welcome back to The Fix, live inside the Prop Swap studios of AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Welcome to any of the potential new listeners. New time slot here for The Fix. You'll hear my lovely voice every weeknight, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., and you'll hear John's lovely voice every weeknight at this time, 7:30. Our NFL Eagles insider, John McMullen, joins me right here on The Fix. John, how are you tonight, sir?
Doing well, recovering from the blizzard of, what year are we in? 2021?
I think so.
Call it that.
Yeah. You got to be careful, man. Are you shoveling snow? You got to stretch before you do that.
Yeah. I'm getting up there. I do got to be. I got to be careful. But
hey, I'm not.
I had a good run. Look at it that way.
Hey, I'm not saying you're old. I mean, I would hurt myself. It has nothing to do with that.
Oh, let's just say I couldn't be on the Eagles coaching staff. We'll just be nice.
Yeah, that's Yeah, I don't think I could be on the Eagles coaching staff. So
that's a good point.
Yeah,
maybe some high schoolers.
Maybe. Only if they've worked with Sean McVay in the past.
Of course.
Yeah. So I opened up the show talking about Sean McVay, actually, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I saw Sal Powell on ESPN's Get Up talking about this. And I just played the clip for our listeners before we went to break to bring you into the conversation. I'm not going to play it again, but just to give you the cliff notes. Basically, Greeny asked Sal Powell about Carson Wentz trade implications and possibilities. And, you know, that's coming off of the Jared Goff trade. And Sal Powell went into an interesting comparison. He says, listen, Doug Peterson had Sean McVay's number, a small sample size, but Doug was successful against Sean McVay. Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, both taken in the 2016 draft, at the top of the draft. Both of these coaches went up against the Patriots and Bill Belichick. One put up a 3 spot in a loss. The other put up a 41 spot in a win with a backup quarterback. And both of them go into this offseason with quarterback questions, and one franchise decides to stick behind the head coach. The other sticks behind the quarterback. So I thought that was an interesting conversation, and I wanted your thoughts.
Well, I don't like any sort of one-game view of things. It's an outlier. You can point to, obviously, the Rams played very poorly in their Super Bowl appearance. And the Eagles played great, at least offensively. But I don't think that makes Doug a better coach than Sean McVay, or vice versa, by the way. I don't think, you can take the sort of highlight game of Sean McVay's and all the eyewash and the reason all these teams around this league want the next Sean McVay and say that's the reason. I think consistency is more important in this league. And if you look at it, I mean, Sean has made the playoffs 3 times and made 1 Super Bowl loss. Doug made the playoffs 3 times, made 1 Super Bowl and won. I think you could say at the end of the day, they're both good coaches. And yeah, if you want to look at it as head to head, and Sean was supposed to win those games, really, and he didn't. So from that standpoint, you can lean towards that as well. But for whatever reason in this league, Sean McVay is regarded as the better coach. Maybe that's what we should examine as to why, and I think a lot of it has to do with the ancillary stuff and the fact that he is young, he is new, he is, I joke all the time about the high stubble ceiling. He's good looking, all that. He fits the suit for old Brady Bunch viewers, and now I'm really dating myself, but that's the reason. And he's the hot commodity. But I point to people. The most innovative offensive coach in this league remains Andy Reid, who is 62 years old, getting ready to play in the Super Bowl again. The most innovative defensive coach, everybody knows. That's Bill Belichick, 66, somewhere around that range. And then let's look at the other coach in the Super Bowl, Bruce Arians, who, if he wins it, will be the oldest coach in history to win the Super Bowl. He is 67 or 68. So, the Eagles are on this bandwagon, and they're not the only one with these young coaches. We've seen it time and time and time again. But I've said on this show, I do think experience matters. And guys like Reid and Belichick and Arians prove that every year.
We're talking with our NFL Eagles insider, John McMullen. Follow John on Twitter at JFMcMullen. You can also find his written work at phillyvoice.com and si.com. And he is the host of Extending the Play every Saturday morning right here on AM 1490 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I mentioned si.com. And, John, I want to get into your article posted today over at SI titled Groundhog Day for Carson Wentz Speculation. So fill us in on that.
Well, it was Groundhog. It's Puxatawny Phil Day, so I thought it was interesting because obviously he came out of his little hole, saw a shadow, so we're going to get 6 more weeks of winter, which is understandable because evidently it's never going to stop snowing again. But beyond that, it's kind of funny because if you think about it, the new league year starts March 17th, so it's about 6 weeks. So I just joked that saw a shadow. That means more Carson Wentz speculation for the next 6 weeks. Ultimately, I do think it'll leak out. I think the Eagles will make the decision before that. But nonetheless, I mean, that's where we are. Jalen Hurts spoke today on a radio show, Super Bowl week, and you see some players starting to speak out. And it's interesting because I think nobody knows what's going on. And I think nobody knows what's going on is because the Eagles are trying to hammer things out with Carson Wentz behind the scenes and trying to get him to buy in for all the reasons we talked about. And even if it's just for 2021, and then you move on in 2022, I think that's a possibility. But I think, and I've been consistent, and I continue to be consistent on this, it's just very, very difficult to trade him at this stage. And I think the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford deal, I think it made it more difficult for the simple reason of you take 2 teams in the quarterback market are no longer in the quarterback market. So just from a mathematical standpoint, I think that makes it more difficult.
No, absolutely. And something that you pointed out in your article, and not that this is a huge deal, but this just is a piece to the Carson Wentz speculation and puzzle, which is what you detailed in this article. But Carson Wentz, when things were going well, he was the, notes app guy on his phone. He was the welcome guy on Twitter, and he hasn't said anything to the media. He hasn't posted anything on social media. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I think it is indicative of the fact that he doesn't want to be here necessarily. I think from his standpoint, he'd prefer to start somewhere else. But look, I think also his agents, the Tolmer brothers and Chase Callahan, tell him, look, I mean, there's a possibility you're going to have to go back here. I mean, there just is, because there are so many hurdles to a potential trade. So even if you want it, and even if the Eagles agree, they still might not be able to trade you because of all of these hurdles. So I think that's where we're at, and the fact that everybody has to sort of have that in the back of their mind. And I think, as I said, the Toners are smart enough to understand that. The Eagles are smart enough to understand it. And you know, I think it's very possible of what I said before happens, and he's here for one more year, and that's it. So I think most people are thinking of it as, okay, they're either going to reboot it and Nick Sirianni and company's going to save them, or the Eagles are going to trade him. I think it's in between. I think he stays for 1 year and he's gone. That's, I think, is the most likely option, and I don't think too many people look at that option. And it's realistic. It's very real.
Would you agree that the negatives of keeping Carson Wentz right now and, air quotes, trying again for this season with the new coaching staff, there's more risk and a variety of risk attached to that than there is eating the money and taking the loss? And I know that's a substantial loss, and I understand the hesitation from Jeffrey Lurie and or the front office, but that's kind of just like okay, let's wipe the slate clean. There's a lot less speculation and criticism surrounding that narrative than there would be of, let's try again here. And is there a QB competition? And, if he gets to a slow start, like there's so many different potential negative roads if he stays, is the point I'm making. Do you agree?
I don't necessarily think so, because I don't think Carson is that kind of guy. I don't think he's going to be just completely poisoning things and completely going off the deep end and trying to ruin things. From a production standpoint, yeah, it could be bad, but I mean, the Eagles wouldn't be the first team to go through bad quarterback play. They went through it last year, and they're certainly not going to be the last team. It happens all over this league every year, and you just move on at the appropriate time and go in a different direction. My biggest concern is, again, even let's assume you can talk Jeffrey Lurie into eating the $33 million, which is a stretch, but even if you stipulate it and say, okay, you got the approval from the owner, so you can do whatever you want. For these people that expect something significant back, well, forget about that. So you have two check marks. You're not concerned about assets coming back in your direction. You'll take whatever you can get. You got the owner's approval to eat $33 million. So, okay, hurdle number 3 is now go find me a team that wants him. And I think there's this assumption that Frank Reich wants him, that he's still a high-level quarterback in the right system with the right coach and the right time. And I'm not sure the rest of the league looks that way at him. That's how his stock is plummeted. And I think about, even if you don't bring up Aaron Rodgers, because he's going to stay in Green Bay, even if you don't bring up Deshaun Watson, because it's still unlikely. He might have to sit out a season if he truly wants out of Houston. So even if you forget the pie in the sky guys, you just saw 2, as I mentioned before, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, the Jimmy Garoppolos of the world. They're more palatable to opposing teams. And I don't think Eagles fans get that. And then you go to the draft, and you got 4 quarterbacks who might go in the top 10. So if you're a quarterback-needy team that already stinks and you're in the top 10 of the draft, why the heck are you going to pay Carson Wentz $25 million to come play when you can get a rookie quarterback for 5 years under a cost-effective deal? I just don't think people realize how difficult this is going to be to pull off.
Yeah, and that's always, I think, just the reality / bottom line of this entire situation. But I want to go back to your initial response just now. You said Carson's not that guy. He's not going to be toxic. And I agree with you. I think what I was trying to illustrate is the locker room, the fans, the media, the circus that it could become once again. Like, how is the locker room feeling about Doug leaving, about all of this overhaul, really just for one guy, whether that's the reality or the truth or not? That's the perception to some. So I assume some players in the locker room have a little bit of that perception. If they get into camp and there's not an open competition and there is a bias and Carson Wentz does struggle, it's not how does Carson react, it's how does that impact everything else in the franchise as a whole.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, you're right about Nick Sirianni having to deal with a lot of issues that were created before he even got here. I mean, that's one of the issues with getting this job, and I've said it goes far beyond. By the way, it goes far beyond Carson Wentz. It goes. You're right. There's a lot of guys in that locker room who really like Doug Peterson. Obviously, had a lot of success with Doug Peterson, and then you even go back to Deuce Staley and how many guys lobbied for him once it became clear that Doug was not coming back. So, yeah, I mean that's part of the issue, and I do think if you go back to Jeffrey Lurie when he fired Doug, and he kept using the word transition, I think there's more to that than lip service. I think he kind of knows this season's probably not going to be a great one. You always hope lightning strikes, and maybe you draft a superstar at number 6, and whether it's Carson plays like an all-pro again, or Jalen Hurts takes the job and turns into a star. You're always hoping lightning strikes, but I think that was a clear indication that there's a little realism at least sneaking into Jeffrey Lurie's thought process and saying, okay, this is a mess, and we got to start fixing this mess. And you talk about Nick Sirianni, there's going to be some growing pains, as we mentioned, with the coaching staff. So maybe they understand that. And by the time you turn this roster over, and the Jason Kelce's aren't here, and the Brandon Grahams aren't here, and the Fletcher Coxes aren't here, it becomes Nick Sirianni's team. But maybe that's 2 years down the road.
Talking with John McMullen, our NFL Eagles insider. A couple more surrounding the quarterback position. That's just the reality of the world that we're in right now, John. But Jalen Hurts, and we've touched on this in the past, but what's the likelihood of him leaving? That question gets leaving. In a trade. That's not talked about too much. It was brought up with Sal Pal to the soundbite that I'm referencing. I don't see that happening at all, but you want to get out from under this potential circus. That's also another viable option just from that standpoint.
Well, I've always said, and I said it probably months ago with you, you have to at least consider it. But while I said that, I've been pretty clear. Look, no matter what the Eagles say, they want a number 1 quarterback. So when I said it, I said, look, if you believe Carson Wentz is salvageable and can turn into a star quarterback again, if you can get something for him, why not trade him? And speaking of Jalen Hurts, again, but you have so many quarterbacks in this year's draft, it would be very hard to trade him anyway. And you just have a backup quarterback, a solid backup quarterback for the rest of his rookie contract. He's got 3 more years, so there's no problem from a financial standpoint. But even further than that is I just don't believe the Eagles really, really believe that Carson Wentz is salvageable, and I think their decision completely hinges on the finances and the realization than anybody else, but you got to do more when you're that age, and he does it, man. You got to give him credit. I mean, he had the best flex, Ryan, this week. And when he was at Media Day, Zoom Media Day, and they asked him, what's different about this year? And he talked about his 9 previous times. Think about that. 9 previous Super Bowl media days.
It's ridiculous.
All he had to do. It's the biggest flex of all time.
It's, John, I feel like I've been saying this for 10 years, that we need to appreciate this Super Bowl with Tom Brady, because we may never see this type of success and type of run ever again. 43 years old in the Super Bowl, and it's not like, no disrespect to Peyton Manning, but it's not like Peyton Manning with the Denver Broncos. It's not like any other example that you can give with an aging legendary quarterback. He still looks, he's declined, but still very, very much at, a sharp quarterback at the top of the game, so to speak. So I don't know if this is going to be the last time we see Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, and that's just absolutely absurd to even utter those words.
No, you don't bet against it. 11 is right around the corner, but we'll see. I always, for the last time, I wondered at Super Bowl 52, and when I was in Minneapolis, I kind of thought that if Tom wins this game, and obviously the Patriots didn't win it, I thought he might retire then. I always think he might retire, go out on top. And who knows if he does it this time, but he continuously says he's going to play at least till 45. Now he says he might even play longer because he's sort of rejuvenated by Tampa Bay.
Yeah, well, he's going to keep playing and keep doing what he does. And, John, we're going to keep doing what we do every night at 7:30. Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk again tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Ron.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. There he is, Johnny Mack. All right, let's get to a break. Barrett Brooks.